Greetings, everyone. Welcome to Artcasters number 309. We're a little bit of a week behind. 309 was supposed to be last week, and we had some technical difficulties and some people under the weather. But we're just gonna roll on, and we're gonna repeat what we were planning on doing last week. So, contrary to kind of some of the information that was out there, I wasn't in a snowstorm, although that's not hard to believe because there's snow. It seems like there's snowstorms everywhere. But I was visiting my dad up in Flagstaff, which is up north here in Arizona. We don't get huge snowstorms, but yeah, for some reason, like I don't know, 15 minutes before we were about to go live, the power went off. But that was right after Mike said that he just suddenly got sick, like 15 minutes or so, or a half hour before we were supposed to go live. So it just was not meant to be, but I definitely was looking for this conversation. So I said, let's just do it again next week. So we try to do this thing every week, but every once in a while something happens like that. We'll take every once in a while we'll take a break or something for a holiday or whatever. But we're not going anywhere. So let's get started. As we usually do, we go around the room. We just introduce ourselves, who we are, where you can find us, anything that we want to pitch or promote or anything like that, and then we'll dive into the topic. So you're on my channel, so you can find me right here on YouTube. I didn't get a video up this week just because I was kind of helping my dad out and did not get a chance to do that. I didn't have the underground layer where I could record or anything, but I'll be back to a regular schedule with that. But besides that, the one thing that I wanted to promote is if you look down below, you will see that the merch, the YouTube merch bar now has digital products. So you don't even have to go to my website, although definitely go there and check it out if you want. But you can go and you can purchase digital products directly from my merch shelf, which is kind of cool. That's a new program that I got. It's actually Google. It's a Google incubator program, and I did a video on it. But they reached out to me. I don't know how they found me because definitely there's a lot of bigger YouTube channels out there. But they found me, and then they got me sort of in the beta thing of this new program they're doing. So hopefully they'll start rolling it out, and other people will have this feature. But I think it's really cool because, and we'll probably get into this with the topic and everything. But what I do as far as comics adjacent stuff is build tools for other comic creators to create, comics. And it's cool that I can have that on the YouTube channel because this is kind of the main platform I'm on. So anyway, check that out. And then I'm going to kick it over to, I don't know if everyone's seeing it the same thing I am, but I'm going to go counterclockwise and I'm going to go to Cory. Hey, Cory, how's it going? And you're on mute, just in case you don't know.
Sorry, I'm good. Yeah, good to be here. You can find my stuff at corykerr.com. And I actually have something to promote this time. I normally
yes.
Awesome. All right.
Scott kept bugging me about this, so it's up now. So this exists. It's a thing. I have a couple copies of these just to test them out. I don't like selling products that I haven't tested. So if you guys like free speech or art or journalism or writing or the ability to say things and not be thrown into a black van,
that's such a good pitch, Cory.
Yeah, so this is available. You can just go to corykerr.com/online. But I tried to get as many different, or I tried to get at least one or two representations of each type of protection and right that the First Amendment grants. So it's in there, and you should be able to find them all. But yeah, it's interesting. It's an interesting conversation starter because people tend to think that you are aligning with their politics because when you wear the shirt, because the First Amendment applies to all parties and all people who talk about things. And so it's interesting. My liberal friends are like, yeah, and my conservative friends are like, yeah, and I'm like, yeah, that's kind of how I like this thing going down. So
that's cool.
Yeah,
let's
so
hope that stays, right? That's a good thing to be excited. It's a good thing to be excited about, right? So let's hope that stays like a bipartisan enjoyment of a right,
Yeah. There's lots of threats to the First Amendment with the new digital age. So it's a good one, and we should keep it.
Yes.
So there's a shirt. I'll probably be rolling out a couple more. I've got a bunch of designs, and I don't know. self-promotion and whatnot. But anyway, if you've seen me already make something and you want it on a shirt, let me know and I'll have that be the next one I put up.
Awesome.
And a couple people were asking about stickers. I will probably have that as stickers probably in a month or two, because I am not in my studio, but it'll be a sticker at some point too. So.
Awesome. All right, Josh. What about you, Josh?
Awesome. Okay, I'm still ironing out my pitch, so I'm literally going to be reading book backs real quick just to get my pitches memorized and stuff. So this is really new. A lot of people haven't even seen this yet, but I got my advanced reader copies of my 136-page full-color graphic novel coming out in June. I thought it was May before, but there's a paper shortage, and so the release is delayed to June, which I think also might be intentional because we're going to try to launch it at TCAF. And so anyhow, this is my graphic novel, and it's basically about this character. It's about how some questions can shake even the strongest of faith. At first glance, these college roommates, Jacob and Sarah, seem like polar opposites. Jacob's a Christian, Sarah is an atheist. Sarah is a drinker, and Jacob is a teetotaler. And they've been friends for years, finding commonality in their shared dream to create. And it's a coming-of-age graphic novel in the vein of Ghost World and Fun Home. And it weaves together threads of spiritual faith, identity, purpose, love, and loss to create an engrossing world in which waking and sleeping dreams collide. So I'm really excited about this, and I would recommend you guys pre-order this at graphicmundi.org. If you want to hold off and you're local to my area, I'll be doing a signing in July at Barnes & Noble. So probably about like July 2nd or something. We're still ironing that out, but stay tuned. But then my recommendation would be also you can pre-order it and bring a copy and then buy a copy to give to a friend. And so I'm going to be pushing this pretty hard because this is a pretty legit publisher, and I want to reward them for taking a risk on graphic novels. And so I'm hoping to sell as many copies as I possibly can, so I don't embarrass my publisher. And then there's 2 stories, which is my current graphic novel, and that's about my journey dealing with mental illness, such as severe depression and caregiving for somebody with panic disorder. It's a very confessional story. Both of these books are definitely not for kids, just to be clear. But this one's available for order right now, and you can get that on Amazon for really reduced rate. Again, it went down in price again. So I've noticed it kind of goes up and down, so I take advantage while it's at such a discounted rate. So pre-order that from Amazon or ask your local comic shop to order this and pre-order Jacob's Apartment. So yeah, that's my two things. Yeah.
All right, we've got a long-time returning guest, Mike Emeritz. Mike, It's been a while. What's been going on with you? You got anything to promote?
I got nothing to promote. No, I've been kind of keeping to myself. I'm still kind of on that trend of what I was talking about last time, just getting back into the art and kind of finding my voice again, finding out what I want to do with it, what I want to say with it, how I want to do that. And kind of reevaluating anything, which is kind of apropos of the topic, isn't it?
Yes. Do we want to just dive into the topic then?
Sure.
If you don't have anything to promote. So hold on a second. One second. I just want to get over to the chat here so we can see. Okay. So I reach out to Mike, as we usually do if you're a little inside baseball stuff, but we usually do give our guests the chance to choose the topic, and Mike had a pretty good one, something that I definitely wanted to talk about, and it's something that I think all of us sort of participated in one way or the other or look at, and that's sort of the idea of adapting. A comic book artist, but if you're a comic book artist, kind of like Jack Kirby said, comics will break your heart, kid. And Mike was saying how he loves comics, but it can be a little soul crushing, and he's looking for other avenues to take his comic book art that maybe is not so much comics. And like I mentioned, I do a lot of comic adjacent stuff. I try to make most of what I do sort of fit kind of connect to comics in one way or other, whether that's building, tools and things for comic creators. I do create comics, but they don't come out on a very frequent basis, just because sometimes they're kind of hard to make a living at. And I don't want to give the impression that you can't, because just look at a lot of the crowdfunding sites and stuff, and you'll see some people doing some really amazing independent comic creators doing some amazing stuff and really doing well with comics and stuff. But there are other things that you can take your comic book knowledge and everything and apply to other media and everything like that. And also, comics are very labor intensive. That's why when you go to a convention, you see a lot of prints, because you can sell a print for $20. Print will probably take you maybe a couple of hours. A comic book, maybe you sell for $5, and and they take a couple of weeks or months or years. So that's kind of what we want to talk about. So, but I'm going to kick it over to Mike, because like I said, you kind of brought up the topic. So, what are some of your thoughts on that? Why you wanted to bring this particular topic up?
Oh, I'm here for ideas. I'm here for you guys. No, there's some truth to that, honestly. But yeah, I guess it's to kind of touch on the Kirby thing. Like it is so true. Kind of like how we were talking a little bit before the show. Like it's something that I've given a very, very concerted effort towards. And I just hit kind of a point in my life where I came to a reality with myself that I'm at a certain skill level, I'm at a certain speed level, and I'm content to do a certain kind of work, a certain amount of work, and that just doesn't align with the goal of doing comics like as a career, as a career to work for somebody, or to even do my own book and count on that as some form of income. It just does not add up. And I had said before the show, but I've said this often too, and I think a lot of us would probably agree, is that you need a little bit of a delusion to do anything in art, even if you have like a kind of a set path. Even the idea itself, you kind of need to convince yourself, hey, this is going to be cool. It's all in my head, but once I get it out there and you turn the pages, the story's going to be great, the art's going to be great, people are going to love it. Like, you need to kind of fool yourself a little bit, otherwise you get really discouraged really fast. So I don't think that I was operating in like a state of delusion. I've been very keen to try to observe that and make sure that it isn't that. But I think it's a realistic kind of outlook that I have. Like, I've done my own little gauntlets. I created something that I called the Jim Lee Boot Camp a while back, where I was following along Jim Lee's Twitch, trying to finish pages as fast as he could and trying to pick up tricks the way that he did them and see how quickly I could do something. And when I've really sat down to try to crank pages out like that, I hated the work I was producing. Hated it. It just was not anything I wanted to share with anybody. And I understand that everybody has to kind of come to terms with that at some point if you're going to do comic art, because you got to be quick and you have to live with it and you got to ship. But I couldn't. And that, I understand that that's a personality thing with me. It's not something that I'm willing to give up. I need to take that time, or I don't want to do it at all. And that's not a great attitude to have for your career. Like, you need to kind of be willing to take your lumps, so to speak, and put out some stuff that maybe you're not so proud of to keep it going. And so realizing that, I'm like, okay, well, what can I do? How can I fulfill all those things that I need out of a job, out of the work that I'm doing, and still make a career of it? And that's kind of where I'm at now. I've got some kind of experiments that I've been working on. I'm definitely leaning way more towards the illustration side of things. It's not that I want to stop making comics. I love comics. I'm probably still going to make them, but I might do the whole hobby thing that I shudder to say, but it might be something that I have to make time for in order to be able to find something else that I could do to fulfill that, responsibility gap, where I could actually do something to make money. So
illustration's a great way to go, and so is commercial animation. Not like films or artsy stuff, but like if it depends, and I have a couple questions for you, but it depends on what you're looking for. Are you looking for creative fulfillment? Are you looking for cash that you don't hate? Or are you looking for cash at any means necessary? Because
okay,
those are
that's a good question.
3 different things. Because, for example, when I was first in the marketplace, I literally was shooting films about like paint chip repair kits on automotive dealerships, and so I was filming paint drying, like the epitome of boring, like, and because I was 24, I was just excited that people wanted to give me money to do stuff that didn't involve me digging a hole, because that was everything I did prior to graduating from college, is just digging holes all the time. And so I before I like ramble on, what are you like? Obviously, it'd be great if somebody said, "Hey, we want you to make the comics that you want to make, however you want to make it, with no
take as long as you want,
and we'll just pay you, whatever you want." So, but realistically, what are you looking to transition into out of those 3 options? Artistic fulfillment, which doesn't necessarily involve money, money that you don't hate, or just money at all?
Yeah, that's a really good question. And I think the most honest answer I could give is that is the question that I am pondering right now. And I'm kind of just at the beginnings of it, trying to actually align what my decision is going to be with my values. And in order to do that, I'm also trying to figure out my values too, which is a harder, deeper question. But if I had to just go from the gut, I've had a lot of jobs, and I've worked in a lot of different creative fields, and so I've done the money at any cost kind of thing, and had good success with that too. Like, you work your way up that way sometimes, but I'm struggling because I am getting a little older, and I was talking with Gaz about this kind of recently, where I don't know if it's necessarily a pride thing, but it might be, where I'm at a point now where I feel like whatever it is I do, even if it's my own thing, when it comes out, it's got to be awesome. It has to be that thing that, everybody's been waiting for a thing. What's the thing? Well, it's amazing, and that kind of pressure makes me feel like somehow my values are definitely more aligned with artistic fulfillment. I don't know if that's
so could I interject
healthy or responsible.
Could I interject
direction.
a 4th option?
Oh, yeah.
Because this is something that I've struggled with.
Mm-hmm.
What you're describing isn't artistic fulfillment as much as recognition. And I have struggled with, like, do I want to make the thing I want to make, or do I want to make the thing that's going to make the audience really excited about what I made?
Yeah.
And I've made things that I love, and I've watched audiences of people watch them and get bored. And like, you'll show it to somebody and you see them, like, move the mouse a little bit so they check how much longer they have to watch this thing. And you're like, oh, that took me 6 months. But then other times there's stuff that I've done that I don't care about it. But people just fall all over it, and that can feel good too. So I don't know if I would call that artistic fulfillment, or if I would call that recognition. And I don't think wanting recognition is a bad thing, but it is a different thing than being.
It is, and that's actually kind of it's an unfortunate aspect, but it is an aspect of my personality. I am fueled by feedback. I do these things for myself, but I also need others to appreciate them in some way.
Yeah.
Because I'm not doing it for nothing, like I want to entertain, I want to move you, I want you to look at something and go, oh, cool, like whatever it is. There's an emotional component that I absolutely need. And
I think you'd be pretty hard pressed to find anyone doing what we do that doesn't want some ratio of that.
Right. Yeah.
If you're being really honest, I would like to not need others' approval at all. But if I'm being honest, it is some kind of percentage of what makes me satisfied.
Yeah. I mean, like, if if I'm having like a down day doing a graphic novel, like it's a lot easier for me on book 2 because like there'll be this occasional thing where like one of Gaz's friends picked up 2 Stories book 1 and gave me a good review, and like it was a really sincere review, and I was like, oh, it was like not like oh, I'm friends with a friend and I'm doing this as a favor. It was like oh, the guy read it and like got it, and then like he recommended it to a friend. So it's like, anyhow, this morning I was having like a brief down moment, and I read this Instagram post that was like, dude, this book's brilliant, like about my first book. And it's like, that gave me juice to like keep going. And it's like, if there's too much of an ebb between the time of like even seeing like a post or somebody say something positive, it can be really daunting because we're in this like weird like tube, like we're in like a bubble. And so it's like, I think cartoonists, like we're in this like weird position where we're really introverted, but we need that extroverted like feedback to kind of keep the fuel going, because that's the whole purpose of it, is for people to read these things.
Yeah, I was gonna say, like, Mike, of work that you're currently doing, when you do something, when you do put it out there, is there like a Venn diagram of something that you put out there that you enjoy doing, that's fulfilling, and that also resonates with people?
That's a good question.
Yeah, and kind of figure out where it falls in there, what that is.
Yeah.
Because I mean, recently you started. I mean, it's been a little while, but you kind of started moving more into like the pinup stuff, and it seems like the stuff I've seen is like, wow, this is really interesting stuff. So I don't know, how people are reacting to that. If part of you kind of going that direction, and I guess even like Sisyphean Complex had a hint of that, and
Oh, yeah.
Probably most of your stuff post like, working on Space Cat and stuff like that, kind of moving in that direction. But with sort of that pinup stuff, I'm curious, is moving more in that direction? Was that because you noticed that a lot of people were resonating with that, or was that it was fulfilling for you, or a little bit of both? Or
That's interesting. So, because it's sort of an ironic transition, because that is 1,000% for me. Like, I genuinely appreciate that kind of work, and I find like just there's so much to explore in that world, and this is not a diss whatsoever on any artists to in any way, shape, or form. But art is subjective, and it is a matter of personal taste a lot of the time. And for my taste and my interest in that kind of art, I just found kind of throughout my life that there wasn't a whole lot that like I could enjoy and also feel comfortable enjoying. Like, it's a lot of very like heavy-handed on the chauvinistic kind of heavily exploitative, almost makes you feel a little squirmy when you're looking at it, like, that is wrong. Whereas my approach was, I do it in a way that all my figures that I'm drawing, they're all participants. They're all there willingly. It's a positive image, and I noticed that my audience for that stuff is overwhelmingly women, which makes me feel great, because it lets me know that I'm getting that vibe through, and I felt like that's important, like.
Yeah, very.
Yeah, it's got an edge to it, and it's not. I'm trying to find a better term, but I was going to say it's a little twisted in a way, but it's just it's interesting. It's not what you would expect from just like when you say pinup. I mean, there's there's a hint of, even like if you look at the thumbnail, there's a hint of like an EC Comics vibe to it. That famous cover, that probably sparked the, Fred Wortham and everything, with the with the guy with the head of the woman, and then it's like, but they like cut it off so you can see that it's severed. It's just like, but it's, there's a lot of that that's kind of reminiscent of that. So there's there's sort of a callback of that. But whenever I look at it, it's very, I guess, evocative. It's just it definitely makes you, I don't know, it makes you pause, it makes you look at it, and it's not just like. So I mean, I'm really kind of intrigued by what you've been working on lately.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm just kind of curious if that factors. If you, I mean, you sound like you're sort of at this crossroads, or you're just trying to figure things out. But how does that play into what you've been doing recently? How does that play into maybe the direction you want to go?
Yeah, I definitely have plans to kind of stay the course with that particular kind of work, and I have some other kind of experiments I'd like to do with it. Even dabbling in some areas that I kind of did in the past. Maybe a little to do with animation, maybe a little to do with games, that kind of thing, but nothing definitive, nothing, official that I'd like to like announce or talk about. But I am definitely leaning more in that direction, and also trying to think of other things too, because personal work, it can get so overwhelming. You work on a personal thing, and it's like no one's paying you to do that. So I'm also trying to think of other ways to do more than just that, more than just exploring this art kind of thing and my own fulfillment, but how can I also, exploit myself in a way that I'm comfortable with? And so,
Dude, there's a couple things I want to say, like from the get-go, that like I've told people, and I'm less like dogmatic about it now because I really do believe in the value of like art for art's sake.
Mm-hmm.
But one thing that's baffled me for a long time as a guy who's made a living, doing illustration and graphic design for like, it's getting close to like 17 years now. It's like, it's completely possible. And I know I'm fortunate, but I also know I'm not that good. And it baffles me why like more cartoonists aren't just like just doing that for their day job and then just doing comics. Because like if you take comics on for like a living, this isn't to knock that. Like there's occasional people who will be like in that rare area of making like a really good living. But it's like you could do like 3 illustrations a month and make more than you would make illustrating a monthly comic most of the time. Like I did a t-shirt design in between pages for a client, and that paid more than like a bunch of comic pages. And I just managed to fit that in between pages. And I literally shouldn't even be taking clients, but the extra money is helpful, right?
Oh yeah.
It's not impossible. I'm going to go a kind of maybe different route than like asking like what you want. And I would just say like seek everything and just start taking paid illustration work. Like get your illustration portfolio up. Don't put anything on your site you wouldn't want to be hired to do, like stylistically.
Yeah.
But literally just like pick one industry, spend a week just sending out query emails. Do you need an illustrator? Like, talk to websites, like email Wired. I got a gig with like Wired magazine just from a cold email. Like, wow. There's things like that just unfold. And now that was a cold email out of like 300 sent out. So that's your job. Like, I'm just saying, if you want to do illustration professionally, that's your new job, is like, you're sending out query emails and you're trying to be like personable, and maybe the stars will align and you end up being that person when they need to hire someone. I think I'm mixed on this. I think like targeting your career and stuff can be really good, but I think like especially when really trying to hit freelance and like make a good income at it, you have to just go for it and not like, honestly, I don't think overthinking it's going to help. Because I honestly think everyone I know from school that we all graduated at the same time, there's like 2 people from my class who don't do illustration for a living. The only difference between them and us was literally like we were the ones who spent like 2 or 3 years just cold emailing, like taking any gig we could that was paid art, and then like building out our portfolios and like, again, like obviously working with contracts, billing fairly. You don't want to take the cheap stuff. And 9 times out of 10, that's always going to be the case, right? Like where you take like the $100 t-shirt gig and you could be doing one for $500,
Yeah.
So you're doing 5 t-shirt designs for what you could just get one client to get that one out. Or if you want to build out like what Scott's doing, it's just like start. To me, or if you want to like do animation, start.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah, so
and that's why I was
Yeah.
asking Josh.
Yeah.
I do think it's important to know where you
having a direction. Yeah, sorry, I get too motivational.
No,
I
like
really
it. I like what you're
appreciated that a
saying.
lot. Like, because you're
I like what
totally
you're
right.
saying. I think, Josh, you have a personality where you were saying that you don't really understand, how, that doesn't happen. You have a personality where I don't think it's easy for you to do that, but you definitely can like say, I'm going to do this, and you like fixate on it and make it happen. I started a business that was in film, and I was good at every part about it except for filling the top of that sales funnel. Like, I am a really good closer, but I am a really bad like finder of clients.
Yeah.
And I do think if you're in it for the money, you have to just, I agree with Josh, you have to just eat your vegetables and say, no matter how much I hate this, I'm going to spend an hour every day or the first 2 days of every week or whatever to like, get in there and do
totally.
it. If you're not about the money, then I had to in my own mind say, I'm not doing this for the money. What is the money to me? For me, it was validation. And so I had to divest myself of that thought process that earning money off of my art meant that my art was good.
Yeah, that's a huge thing, by the way.
Yeah. And it took me a little while, but that was a big thing for me and I'm sure anybody that's been following my YouTube channel for a while knows when I was going through that period, because I talked about it a lot. I have a lot of videos on me just saying, your price doesn't validate your art. Your art is valid because it exists, because you made it. And if you're doing it, for the enjoyment of the process or for the mental health benefits that it gives you to create, I would take money off the table, and then it'll either come or it won't. If you are doing it because like, I want, to help provide, and I want to be in there and I want to earn, then you gotta eat your vegetables. But that's why I was asking. Yeah. That's why I was asking that at the beginning.
Yeah, it is a good question. Because
what I've found is I hate doing exactly what Josh is talking about.
Yeah, me too.
But whenever I do, it does bear fruit. It is.
Yeah. Well, and that's kind of why I'm really trying to look at what I want and assess my values right now, because I'm very much like you, Josh, where once I've decided I'm gonna pick a thing and do it, I am in 1,000%, and I am barreling forward.
Yeah.
And I've just had too many times where I've done that without thinking about it enough, and I gotta say, maybe it's a fear thing that I just kind of want to be certain about where I'm pointing myself before I pull that trigger.
So I think that's smart. I mean, I did overdo it a bit by being like, just go for it. But
but you're right though too, in the same token, like you really are. And all those examples you gave were great. I hadn't actually thought about that. Yeah, just email Wired or email, magazines and places that fit the kind of things that I do. There's tons of them out there.
Yeah,
go to the newsstand and look at the first couple pages of every single magazine and just write down all of the editors.
Yeah.
You'll have the contact information of who is the art buyer for each magazine.
Yeah.
And you can just, like Wired is a great example because they have really fun illustrations.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Like
they do.
Just spend a couple seconds flipping through every magazine on the shelf. And if you see something where you're like, I could bring something to that, figure out who the art director is and shoot him an email and just say, hey, I noticed, so-and-so's work in the recent issue of whatever. And I loved it. And I just thought I'd introduce myself and say, if you ever need anything that looks like this, I'd love to help.
And use your internet savvy to figure out that art director's email, because it's not always there. Like, especially because a lot of this is digital now, right? But if you go to a website, chances are they're going to have somebody, an editor, somebody's contact info.
Oh,
And
yeah.
generally businesses use the same naming structure. So all you need is the art director's name and then the name structure of their email address. So it's like, oh, it's first initial and then last name. And I've totally done that.
That's funny.
Like,
Yeah.
wire my way in. But it is one of those things of like, it's totally possible. You just have to be really stubborn in whatever you choose to go for, and don't accept a closed door. Like if the door is closed, find like a window and just squeeze through. And the cool thing is like, there is money in it. And I wouldn't be this adamant about it with somebody who didn't have talent, but Mike, you can draw better than I can. And so it's like, no, I don't mean that as like flattery. It's just, you're a really good draftsman and like have a really good sense of color. And so it's like, it's a usable skill as long as you can hit deadlines, and then also just be like super crazy about that first, like, you're going to get like 40 non-responses. Like I would start like literally like the first week, just send out queries like for make it an 8-hour-a-day job, and your job is just to send out nonstop query emails and do research and send them out and have a template, format it so it's specific enough to where it doesn't seem generic, and that's just your job for like a week to 2 weeks.
Sure.
That's your art job, and then you get a job, and then like you make that like Cory was saying, that's like your first hour of the day, and then as you build up that client list and knock it out of the park for every opportunity that comes in, and you start building the return clients and stuff like that. And you can actually make it's not an easy living, but it's like, if you want to freelance, that's a good way to go. It'll also help with like other stuff, other opportunities that can open up with like in-house work and stuff like that, if you wanted to go that route. But like
the other thing I would recommend is if you're doing it for money, and it's any money or any money that you don't hate, because like you could go dig holes, right? That's always an option.
Totally.
For me.
I mean, I've always said if Barnes and Noble wasn't on its way out, that was my favorite job I ever had. I would totally just work at a bookstore and make art on the side.
Bookstores are a great job.
But I mean, there are constantly situations where a lot of your artist friends are turning away work, and so you can also reach out to the art community and say, hey, if there's anything that you don't want to take, or if you got any spillover or whatever, we'd love to do that.
Yeah,
and I've been the spillover guy for people before.
Yep.
And like you can talk to, like if there's a print shop near you that has very aggressive salespeople, not necessarily aggressive like hard sale, but like very active salespeople, you can let them know like, hey, these are some things that I can add to your thing, and give them like a rate sheet. And salespeople that are selling print, they love to be able to upsell with custom art and custom animation and custom. And I have made probably tens of thousands of dollars over the last 10 years just on a couple salespeople. And I just said, hey, you're selling print, but if anybody needs a t-shirt design or a logo design or an illustration for a sign, or I mean, some of my favorite pieces were commissioned and I didn't even sell them and never talk to the client. And so you can also look at like other businesses that would offer the type of thing that you do if they had access to it, and then you become their what is that called, Josh? There's a why am I blanking on this term?
I'm not sure. I apologize.
Basically like a white label vendor. Like they don't know who you are. They think they're going through ABC printing. Yeah. But it's really, Michael Emeritz, but you white label it through them. It's a third party vendor. You become a third party vendor for agencies and businesses and other people that have a sales force. And that's one way that I've gotten around selling is, I kind of get in with a business that is already selling, and then I don't have to.
Yeah, that's interesting.
So, Mike, I was going to add, we were talking about magazines and everything. There was a question. Edie wanted to know if any of us have published in heavy metal. Have you looked into heavy metal? Because I mean, your stuff is totally tailor-made, I would think. I know it's comics, and that may there's a lot of time involved in there. I don't know if they do anything other than if they ever do pinups or anything in there, but it seems like your stuff's tailor made for heavy metal. So
I was going back and forth with the editors for a while, and
Okay.
I got a good friend. I mean, I don't want to say that he's not a good friend. We're not as close as we used to be. But my buddy Ralph published through them quite a few times, actually. And so he was helping me. And for the response that I got was basically they don't really do black and white anymore. And at the time, all I was submitting to them was black and white. And I just wasn't motivated, I guess, to color the stuff that I was
your color work is amazing. So I mean, maybe it's time to relook at that.
Then. So maybe I should. But I don't know. There's been so many changes with heavy metal now. Like it's not quite the magazine it used to be. So and the pay is horrible. Like Ralph really like advised me to just stay far away. So it tainted my kind of excitement about it. But I would love to just get even a little thing just to say that I did.
Do they own the work you publish, or do you still have it? Because there is a plus to that. If you can publish to them, and if you still own the work, plus if you have those originals, if it's published in heavy metal, you might be able to turn around those originals too.
Yeah, I guess that's possible because their deal is awesome. All that they care about is that they just don't want whatever you're putting out to be published at the same time. So even if it's already been published in something else, they'll still take it. They have a very open door policy with all their stuff. It's very cool. Yeah. So that is it's more of a novelty thing, I think, for me for that kind of thing. But it is definitely something that I still keep in the back of my mind. It's funny because a lot of the stuff that you guys are saying about, hitting the pavement basically and building up a client list and all that, it's stuff that I've done in other careers, but not necessarily illustration. And I've been thinking about that a lot lately, about just sort of the paths that I did go down and then where I've ended up now, because I started out just loving to draw and kind of being a little bit of a jack of all trades of stuff, but I've really found kind of a niche with the illustration stuff. Like it's something that I enjoy. It's something that I don't want to say it comes easily, but it doesn't come with as much like overwhelming dread as it does doing a comic page, which is just a ton of work, and I think way too much about all that. So it's not necessarily so much about like how to find a job, but it's like, what job do I even want? Because even within illustration is such a broad topic, and I would definitely kind of like I forget if it was you, Scott, or if it was Cory, but you were talking about finding someone that finding a place that kind of aligns with what you're already doing,
And as far as that goes, as far as going back to heavy metal, it might be a good idea to look at heavy metal, look who's advertising in heavy metal, and send them stuff, because obviously they like that type of artwork, and they may want something for either their ads or whatever they do. See what kind of work they're doing, and just like, what could I do for this company that would work for whatever they're selling? Because I mean, and I assume heavy metal runs ads. It's been a while since I've picked up. I mean, I imagine they'd have to.
Yeah, they have to.
Yeah. So I mean, that's an option there.
Ads are a great idea, Scott, and I would recommend that you also look at trade magazines, not B2C magazines, but B2B magazines.
Yeah.
And look at who's placing ads there, and you can talk to anybody. I know Josh and I worked in different industries, but I would imagine that the trade magazines are very similar. You're basically, when you're working B2B, there is a lot more money and a lot less competition, because there's a lot less recognition, and the public rarely sees what's going on, but it's a business selling to a business. And so if you can get in on that, there's significantly, it's higher up the food chain from a financial standpoint. And so it's a little bit harder to ingratiate yourself into those environments. But once you do, people really don't like changing vendors all the time. And so if you become, the illustrator for, guitar company X, they're not likely to like go find a new illustrator every time they need an illustration.
Yeah.
But B2B stuff, if you can get in there, and I would just look at like, are you interested in cars? Okay, look at like B2B stuff for like engine parts.
Yep.
In the aftermarket in like trade magazines, and see who's advertising there. And you go, oh, Motorfist has some cool illustrations.
Yeah.
Let me contact them. There's probably like a marketing guy, and he would love some help. You know what I mean? Like that type of thing is usually the type of thing that nobody thinks about, because as consumers, we don't usually see that.
Mm-hmm. And also, like, you know, if you want to build up like some kind of sexier portfolio stuff that's you know, illustration heavy, you can always go for like the slightly lower paying but very artistically fulfilling stuff. Like, contact a crap load of microbreweries, right? And just do some beer, like
sauces and stuff.
I mean, like, your style would translate really well to that. Skateboard companies are notorious for terrible pay, but you do a couple skateboards, and the neat thing is the right people like skateboard art for like certain styles, especially comic styles of art. And so sometimes you could do like a skateboard graphic.
That thumbnail would look awesome on a skateboard. Just saying.
Yeah.
And then and Keith mentioned tabletop RPG companies. Yep. I know a lot of companies are, you know, they're, you know, gaming is huge on like Kickstarter.
I'm making my own.
Oh, really? Okay. That's something I did not know about.
That's not a bad revenue source. Yeah, that's not a bad revenue source either.
Yeah,
like,
I don't know if you can see, but I got that whole middle shelf is all game components and stuff. My wife and I have actually been working on a couple things on the side together.
Really?
I would add to Josh that don't just think of warm weather stuff, but the same type of people that enjoy skating a little bit further inland would also be into motorsports, snowboarding.
Yeah. I wonder if Malachi's still got job listings too, because you could always look to see if there's like some action sports openings in your area too. Those can be okay gigs for like day jobs, you know? Yeah.
Yeah, I mean,
so I don't know. Is this what you're looking for, Mike?
Yes and no. You know, I think I can attribute it to somewhat closer to the sort of a midlife crisis kind of deal, where it's like, what am I doing? Why? What else can I be doing? That kind of thing. But yeah, it's tough because, you know, I thought that I had kind of solved my puzzle when I discovered the comics thing, because I was at the tail end of a career that I learned that I really didn't enjoy with film, which was a funny kind of situation, because I climbed up that ladder pretty rapidly and just by luck, really. And then I just kind of found the comics thing, and I found all of you guys too, because I was at sort of a low and not knowing what to do. And then when I saw Kevin's videos and all that, it like lit this spark of like, oh, hey, that speaks to me. That's something that it checked all the boxes that I needed at the time. And I thought, you know what, damn it, I'm going to make this work. And I could, but I don't want to. Is this sort of the lesson that I learned, is like, I don't enjoy this as much when I'm forcing myself to do it every single day. Like, I'm growing to get bitter about stuff and just not, I don't know, you know, if I could kind of detour for a little bit, I got a very good question for you, Josh, specifically, because I was just talking with Mel about this today, and we, right before I came on the show, kind of honed in on something that may be an important factor in my decision making. But a big factor for me about why I haven't put out any of my comics yet is they're so personal. They're a slice of my soul. So, and I know you relate to that. I'm sitting down to
I got two little pieces of my soul right now.
And so what, Josh, what is it why don't you have a hang up about putting that stuff out there? Maybe that would help.
I guess that's the question, because sometimes even working on it kind of brings me to it, because a lot of what I want to talk about is mental health kind of stuff. And thematically, it puts me in a place I don't want to be. And I've really come to terms with that kind of recently, that maybe it's just for me, I'm not saying for you, I'm very interested in what you have to say, but maybe it's not even healthy for me to try to tell the kind of stories that I feel I need to tell. But I can tell these other kind. I can do this other kind of art that's not really me trying to slice off these little pieces, because it puts me in a place where I can't continue anymore. I can't
I have
do
a
the thing.
suggestion after Josh's answer.
Yeah, mine's not going to be fun.
Oh.
It kind of is, but it's like, here's the thing, like no one's forcing anyone to make comics, right?
Yeah.
And to be honest, like I'm starting to kind of get to a point where like if somebody doesn't want to make comics, great. like I like making comics, right? I'm going to be pursuing publishers and graphic novels, and the less people doing that, the better for me. So I guess what I'm saying from a selfish point of view is like yeah, don't make comics if you don't want to make comics. But if you have that soul part that's like telling you to do it, and it's like it's just that it's hard, that's tough. Like and the thing I will say is like it depends, because if you're in a position where you have to get income, then like to me, if you're an artist, it's silly. I remember my wife and I like were finally at a point where Ben was old enough for her to like take on some side work, which was great because we've been living on my income for like 5 or 7 years with a son, you know, and we were talking about it. She's like, "Well, I'll just get a part-time job and stuff." And I was like, "Just illustrate? Like, are you kidding me?" Like, and she was like, "Well, I don't know." And I'm like, "No, like literally, you'll work for like 8 days." Part-time, and you'll make what you would make in like one sitting doing illustration. Like at the age we're at with like, if you have that skill set, it's like being a plumber and being like, you know, I'm going to go work at McDonald's. Like that's ridiculous. Like you have this skill, like you should use it to make art. So to me, that's just from a trade level. Like if you've got the skill, you should use it to make art, because art can probably potentially, especially if you're this far in, you know, because we do get to that weird age, and every cartoonist I know, including myself, have had that freak out moment of like, why didn't I go into law? Like, why didn't I go into like, you know what I mean? Like, why did I, you know, but there is this weird part where you kind of have to just go, well, I'm on this train. I picked this train and I'm going to ride it through. But with comics, I will say like, there is this inherent thing, and it doesn't have to be this like this crazy thing, but it's like, it is worth asking. Like, if not now, when? Like, if it's something you should be doing, and then when will that time or that window like open? And if it won't open, then it might be a time to like either give up the ghost or like figure out, like in the sense of the idea of it, or figure out like a game plan that would allot time. But regardless, like if you're making comics, it does require that commitment of showing up a lot.
Oh yeah.
And so that's the hard part, is like it is hard. You're kind of bearing your soul. It's not for everyone. And like I wouldn't wish writing novels on people, like if they didn't want to write. Like it's also a nightmare once you have a book out, right? Because you have to promote the book, you have to do signings, you have to do all this extra stuff that's like the not fun stuff. Like there's a whole range of components to it that really suck. So
totally,
they can also be really rewarding, but it's like I don't know if that helps at all. It's like, I'm not trying to say like give up. I'm just saying if you're not really wanting to do it, most cartoonists don't want to do it, but we just kind of have to do it.
Yeah.
I don't know if that makes sense. So
I think I was more interested, I guess, in the aspect of like telling such a personal story. And I guess, and you don't even have to answer if you don't want to, because I imagine it's got to be difficult to make specifically the comic that you're making 2 stories, to like go back to those times, those instances. And, you know, I think like just maybe where I'm at with my mental health, that I'm just not at a point where I can in a safe way, to put it in a weird way. But I think you kind of know what I mean, though, like where I can go in and still get out.
Yeah, I can understand that. Because I mean, like for me, it's weird. I'm writing about some stuff that I haven't I had processed, but then like I had parts when I was roughing out this book where I was like, oh wow, I hadn't fully processed this. Like,
Mm-hmm.
and it's when it's autobio, it's like I don't know. There's also a cathartic thing about it where it's like when you put it on paper, it almost feels like it justifies like that weird stuff or suffering or whatever you're pulling from. So that's like it can be cathartic too, but yeah, it can be tough, you know, and it's not for everybody. I'm like a weird person who I like leaning into vulnerability.
Kind of weird though.
Yeah, but I get what you're saying because it's like, yeah, that's a tough thing to go into, and if it's gonna like this, I'd say to anyone, like if art is gonna cost you your mental health, like don't do art, you know, like. And so like if there's a form of art that isn't going to cost you like your mental health and then there's one that will, maybe it's worth the break from it or like or again like maybe shifting subjects or something, you know, to something that's less it just depends on what that thing is, you know. I don't know.
Totally.
Does that answer? I feel like I've given two totally answers, and I feel like one might have missed the mark. So
no, absolutely. You know, I mean, I like the answer because it kind of validates what I've been thinking. So maybe I'm biased, but no, that what you just said like is exactly kind of what I'm going through now, and it rings true with what my wife and I just talked about before we started the show. About I feel like maybe it's kind of the direction, not necessarily changing everything. I don't want to just stop doing art. That's not at all the case.
yeah,
But there's certain things that I get fulfillment from and a great deal of, and it leaves me in a positive place. And unfortunately, those things don't have anywhere near the kind of, you know, depth that I would like to be able to share with the world. You know, all my pontifications and stuff. But maybe that's fine. You know, like I could still create work that resonates with people in a completely different way. Like I think about this stupid little pug drawing that I did on Teresa's show. This one's and people
I love that
it.
pug drawing.
I get messages from people all the time about it. Like
I'm a little biased
pug.
having a really crazy old pug. So
was he the one? Didn't you do one where he had like an army helmet?
Yeah,
yeah.
Okay.
He's the war pug.
Yeah,
he's seen things, man. Yeah,
So-
and I love doing that stuff because that makes me laugh while I'm making it. It's so ridiculous and like stupid, but in a good way, in a fun way. And like, there's something about that like I get a feeling when I'm making stuff like that like I know that people are gonna laugh. I know people are gonna enjoy it just because it's ridiculous. And I really thrive in that kind of space. But then when later on, months later, when I'm in a mode that I get into, I feel like, well, is this all I'm contributing to the world? Don't I have something better to give than this cockeyed pug in an army? What am I doing? But at the same time, when I'm in those dark places, I seek out comedy. I watch comedy specials. I look for ridiculous stuff. That stuff has saved my life, probably.
Yeah,
so
Monty Python got me
kind
through
of value,
junior high.
you know. So
I want to say that this is coming from somebody who draws, you know, dumb cockroaches and wasps for fun.
which are awesome.
But I mean, I would argue the same thing. They're not important. You know what I mean? Like they're not like earth shattering or whatever. But like some of the dumbest stuff that I've made from like a intellectual standpoint is some of the stuff that I enjoyed making the most and that people enjoy the most of mine, of my work. And so I would just, anytime you get into that headspace, I would remind yourself that like your work doesn't need to change the world. It's not it's not like you need to be the illustrator, you know, that causes a revolution to overthrow the government of Taiwan or something.
Yeah,
you know
I wouldn't want that either. It's too much.
Right, but I mean, but sometimes I can relate. I've felt that pressure to be like everything I do needs to be important.
Yeah,
you know. But like sometimes you can just enjoy making it and enjoy the fact that other people enjoyed that you made it.
Mm-hmm.
That's awesome. You know, I was thinking. I'm in Scott Snyder's Substack. Cool. I subscribe to him, and he's doing this thing called Best Jacket, and so he did a Substack thing, and he went out and started releasing a bunch of different indie comics. And he's doing all that stuff, and you can just read him on Comixology. But then if you pay behind the paywall, he's been talking about his process. And I wonder if this is something that could help you in what you're talking about with Josh, is his stuff, which is about Batman or weird witches that run around in the woods, or like, he does like horror stuff,
Yeah.
It is deeply personal to him. And it's really interesting because you'll see like Batman Death in the Family or Batman Court of Owls are based on what he was actually going through at the time.
Wow.
And you would never think that because it's, it's Batman and Robin, it's capes and tights.
Yeah.
Everybody's running around doing whatever. But he's like, no, my wife was pregnant and I was terrified that I was going to be a horrible father. And that's where Death in the Family came from, was the Joker became the antagonist to Batman's fear of being a father to his wards, to the whole Bat family. And so everything that came out of that was based in a very realistic, actual fear that he was experiencing, but he made it fun and bombastic and DC Comics stuff. And so I love what Josh does, and that is one option. But I don't think anybody would look at We Have Demons or Vampire or Clean or whatever Snyder's doing and think, well, that's obviously autobio. But the way that he writes, it actually is. But it is full on crazy comics fiction. And so I wonder if you could scratch that itch, but then put it out there and divest yourself from it so that people look and just go, oh, Mike is telling a great sci-fi opera thing, blah, 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 blah. But nobody's thinking like, I wonder if he's struggling with his marriage. You know what I mean?
Agreed.
I've tried. I mean, that is this Fiend complex. That's every story that I write. And unfortunately, like I end up just not finishing them because there's something about even, I don't know, it's that idea that now it matters. Like now, whether, if I convey that theme properly matters, if I convey that emotion properly matters, just so much more. Like it creates this layer of importance, and that's where I start to get trapped in that unnecessary complexity of why this isn't quite the gesture that I need, so I need to do a dozen more pages. That's where all those Instagram posts come from with 5,000 goblins.
So I have a question kind of on that note too, right? And this is just an honest question, right? Is this like potentially a pivot though? And the only reason I'm bringing it up is because I kind of remember like Space Cat was like kind of fun and lighthearted and goofy. And then you were like, no, I got to pivot to Sisyphean Complex because this is the thing I need to work on. And you did all the previs for it.
Yep.
So my question would be like, and this is just honest, but it's like, would this be another pivot to like a bunch of previs for a totally different project? And then another pivot might occur.
No, that's a very valid question. Extremely valid question. That's one of the number one things I'm.
And I don't mean that as an attack. It's like I would think of that. I don't know.
Yeah.
So. Tack onto that same thing, Mike. Have you explored why you put so much pressure on everything doing something rather than just like it is what it is? I've moved because I did 60 pages, my first comic book, 60 pages. And I looked back at it and I was like, I have to fix those 2 pages. And so I completely redrew 2 of the first couple pages. And then I was about to go down the rabbit hole of like redrawing every single page, which took me, it was about 18 months. And so I was like, oh, I recognize that is like that's like a feedback loop that never ends, that I would continue to get better at art and continue to need to. So I'm wondering, because what you're describing kind of sounds like you're putting some pressure on the work that you're producing that is impossible to achieve for anyone, not just you, but for anyone.
Yeah,
so like when we read something, right? When I read a book, when I watch a movie, when I do that, I'm bringing my experiences and emotions and opinions and the lens that I see the world to that experience. And so a lot of that meaning, the reader is putting it in there. You have no control over their experiences and how they're going to filter that. And so sometimes I wonder if you should process why you're doing that and how you can just say, I'm going to put this out there. It will be what it is, and it's going to be different for each person, but I don't need to try to force it to be the perfect thing. It's going to be good. And then I'm going to move on to the next thing and just kind of like,
Totally. Yeah.
you know what I mean?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. No, that's sorry if I could just address that really quick. That's the fundamental kind of question that I've been really, really struggling with this year. Something about when we moved here, things kind of, for lack of a better way to put it, not to over dramatize it, but things really started falling apart for me, like just sense of reality kind of thing, that kind of whatever. And so it's also been a struggle to even kind of get the process going of getting some help with all that. I know the last time I was on the show, I was talking about how I was about to start therapy. I had 3 therapists refuse to see me. So,
oh no!
But I'm about to try another one tomorrow, and I have so many questions. Because you're right. That's absolutely, that is on my mind. Is this a pivot? Is this an unsolvable problem, and why? Why do I create those? And I feel like at least this time I'm trying to understand that more fully, and I'm trying to understand that firmly grounded in only tangible kind of evidence that I have, as opposed to trying to make quick decisions and run with impulses. I've had so many impulses. I mean, this year I started about 5 projects that no one knows anything about. I mean, the game thing this is the first time I've even talked about it. I have one that's like nearly done. I have a variant on that one that kind of, we ran into some problems, and then a whole other one that's done and just needs art, and 3 video game projects, one of which I completely abandoned because it was 3D and that was nonsense. That's a whole ball of wax to try to unravel that. But all of these are things that I can do, and that's the problem. Like I have a diverse set of skills and of the worst brain to have them because I can't sit down and focus to finish any of them.
So Mike,
but I'm starting to learn these things, and I am starting to learn these little warning signs to watch out for, so that hopefully I can set myself up for success instead of constant, perpetual, endless projects, for sure.
So Mike, I think you should pursue commercial art if you're interested in like income, like for sure, like that, no doubt, right? So I think that's totally handled. But I want to mention, and like this book, right? The whole process of me making this was like second guessing, like a lot of self-doubt, a lot of stuff that disappeared when I finished the last page. And the whole process was constant doubt and constant just kind of having to like go, no, I'm not crazy. I'm going to just keep going and keep moving forward. And having to kind of let things like be comfortable with like, okay, I'm going to do my first idea of like what my layout's going to look like. I'm going to try to push it a little beyond the obvious. And then I'm going to be comfortable with that. Because if I just work this to death, I'm going to have one perfect page and never have a finished book.
Yeah.
Once that got done, the second book was like a much more confident, awesome process because I had already been through the whole graphic novel, right?
Yeah.
I will tell you, like, if you want to do comics, or any of these projects, honestly, that are like personal projects, I think there is an art to finishing, and I think what you need to do is finish one, period. Yeah. Just pick one, finish it, be less precious. I'm guessing Gaz has told you the exact same thing.
Oh yeah.
That's
literally cricket.
that's why Young and the Dead exists, because I had done that before, just like never finishing, and I had to say, I'm going to stop. I'm going to try a different style. I'm not going to be so precious. The idea of Young and the Dead, the reason why I came up with that idea was for Mini Comics Dump Truck. It's supposed to be an 8-page story, and I'm like, what's some simple idea that I don't really care too much about. Oh, kids fighting zombies. That's very simple.
Yeah.
And then once I started getting into it, it became something. And I also made the choice not to be so precious with the artwork. Now, everyone kind of works differently. And so, I mean, I don't know that you can work the same way I do, just like I could never work the same way you do. But one of the things I was thinking about, you know, you put so much time into like Sisyphean Complex or Space Cat or these projects, and hopefully they'll see the light of day. But I don't know if they don't. I mean, I'm almost thinking there may be interest in just the way you work, just the way you create, because it's so different. People are always looking for different processes and things like that. To take what you have, even if it's not published. I've got a book called The Skillful Huntsman, and I don't know what the story was behind that. I don't know if it's something, if they just decided, I think it might have been a school project, and they took the fairy tale and they designed it like it was going to be a movie. I don't know if they had intentions to complete it or not, but it's nothing that was ever realized. But it looks like that. You can see the process of them doing this, creating this movie out of this fairy tale. Yeah. And I think something like that with just what you have, just how you work, your mindset, how you create this, I think that would be very interesting to a lot of people. And you could take all that work and present it, you know, all the sketches. This is why I work this way. And I don't know. I mean, I just really, honestly, your workflow and the way you create is so unique.
It's beautiful.
I just think, you know, I just your thought process. I think recording that, maybe even publishing, and I don't know, you know, I don't know if there's a market for it or not. But I mean, it's I don't know. That's what I think when I think all that work that you have and just the story behind it. I mean, I just think it would be fascinating. So I don't know.
But also, Mike, like on the whole, like needing to make a serious work or whatever, we had like Yehudi Mercado on here, and I feel like of everybody we've had on, he might be one of the most relevant, other than like the Fan Brothers, for like impact on human beings, because these are people making like art that's good and it's pleasurable, but it's very well executed and it's meaningful to kids, right? At the time they probably need really meaningful stuff the most. And so like, well, a lot of people would look at like what I'm doing and being like, oh, you know, it's not really that like deep compared to like the deep impact that like Sendak had on like a kid. And so like, and also like, you know, I think about like one of the most serious forms of like comics, and it's like Mouse, which is like very noodly and loose in its approach. And yet it's like the heaviest, but like that book is like somebody just spilling their blood on a page.
It's a hard read.
And I think it was a hard write, I'm sure, you know, to do. But it's like the choice to kind of intentionally do a style that was feasible for that is like another thing too. So all of those are options if like comics are still on the table, you know, where, you know, some of it could be like, I would love to see like a kind of, I mean, the way you do that pug, I'd actually like to see you do a very serious story in that style. There's so many. I
was going to actually. It was it's a story that made me cry when I wrote it, and I just haven't been able to bring myself to do it. But it's called Grumpy Monkey, and then there was another book that came out that was called Grumpy Monkey. So I kind of scratched that idea to think of a new title for it, but that's exactly kind of like that. It's totally the pug style, but a very, very serious story about grief and loss and delusion and, you know, dealing with that kind of stuff. But
dude, I love all your art, so I feel like we need to somehow figure out a way to get you to finish one of them, or you know what I mean, because I think it's feasible.
Well, personal on the side of personal stuff, I'm kind of being intentionally vague, because I'm trying to be careful about exactly what I say I'm working on, because I'm trying to insulate myself from expectation. But I have two things that I'm actually very excited about, and that I have been very diligently working towards in a whole different way than what I normally do. It's not, well, for one, the subject matter is ridiculous. So that frees me up. I'm not trying to say anything. I'm just trying to do something entertaining. And okay, I'll give a little small spoiler, but the pug himself is actually a main character in this thing that I'm doing. It's all based around him, and it's stupid, and it's gonna be great. I'm kind of proud of how I've been going about this. I have kind of chunked things, and I've been doing things in sort of like an order and just doing them, and then they're done, methodically going through. I've got
great.
like a little short-term goal, long-term goal thing, and I'm trying to keep the scope small to see if this feels different for me and if it produces different results because of that. And I've learned enough about myself that I know novelty is incredibly important. And unfortunately, right now, I'm just exhausted with comics. It's not that I don't want to do them. It's that when I sit down to do them, I'm immediately tired and sad. And so I just need to step away for a little bit. So it's not a comic, but it is still I'll say it's a fun experience.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah.
And again, I also don't think it's bad to step away too from comics, you know. So
I have to, because I love them too much and I don't want to feel the way that I feel. And I've gone that road with another path before, and I ended up hating it, and so much so that I completely just removed myself from even the hobby entirely for like 7 years. And it wasn't until much later that I started kind of dabbling again, and I felt even more sad because I was like, why did I blame the hobby? Like, why did I blame the medium? Like, something else was going on that I wasn't able to make it work. It's not the medium's fault, you know. I liked it for a reason, you know. And so yeah, I'm kind of revisiting some things that I have abandoned in the past. I've created a creative bucket list in a way where I'm kind of going back to the beginnings of things and saying like, all right, well, you didn't finish this thing. Let's finish this thing. And then once we've done that, let's see where we're at, move on to the next thing. But again, that's personal stuff. That's personal stuff. If money is not like a huge issue right now, but I don't like not having a plan for that. And, you know, I still do commissions. I still get requests to do commissions. I'll probably still get asked to do them, and I'll still take them. But I'm trying to think more strategically about what am I doing? Do I enjoy this? Can I, if money suddenly mattered, can I point myself in a direction that I don't feel this way about, you know, where suddenly now I have 15 things to do in a month and I'm okay with that, and that doesn't just completely crush me. You know, that's kind of where my head's at. Like, what do I want to do? Where can I point myself that I will be at least content? We want to start a family, and it's the moment that happens, there's going to be a switch that flips off in my head that will not allow me to just sit here and do personal stuff. I'm going to have to pull the trigger on something, and I'd like to know what that is and feel comfortable about it.
I have an idea and an invitation that you can totally turn down and don't answer right now, so you can think about it.
Okay, like, put me on the spot.
No, but what I'm doing right now is kind of, I got really sick of. I spent almost all of last year doing other people's work, and I'm really proud of the work that I produced, but I did very little for myself. And specifically, I made that music video, which was fun, and I got paid well, and it was great and everything. But it's won some awards and stuff. But I was like, the next thing that I make, I just want it to be something that I really enjoy. And the thing that I didn't like about it was doing the same exact thing, basically over and over and over again, but slightly differently for a different character or different vehicle or whatever. And so I actually started the project I'm working on right now. I just reached out to like 20 or 30 people, and about 15 of them responded. And I said, let's make something that's just nuts. And the fun thing about it is,
I like nuts.
Yeah, it's based on augmented reality, and just this woman is walking around flipping through different overlays. We're calling them shades, cool. different animated styles. And so I have a whole. So anyway, so if you ever want a palette cleanser, and you want to jump in and throw a scene together. Each scene is going to be on the screen for less than 4 seconds, and so
Okay.
so it's really just like I'm trying to overwhelm the viewer with like so many different things. But what I'm finding is like the style of art that I'm even working on right now, I never do stuff like this. You know, I never like paint. I wouldn't even say I'm any good at it, but like I like that I'm able to toss this together and then like not really care how it comes out, because I know that I'm going for volume, not quality.
Yeah.
Because of what I want the end product to be. It's been a really interesting experience for me.
That sounds cool.
Who tends to hold myself to an extremely high standard that I rarely hit. It's been a really interesting experience to be like, you know, like last night I did 5 different scenes in 6.5 hours.
Whoa.
So it's like fast. I did this one just, I don't know how long we've been talking, but I've done this one just in the time that we started talking.
Yeah, every time you're on, Cory, you're drawing something new. It's just like like you're just crazy the production you're putting, you know.
And it's cool the variety too of the styles. You know, it's been fun.
Yeah, and so that's what I'm saying is like I wonder if, because I used to do like the sticker stint as like a palette cleanser where I'd make like I'd design a new sticker every day for like 30 days or 15 days or whatever. And it was good because I got a lot of variety of concepts, but it wasn't a variety of execution. And so I don't know. I wonder if as a side project or whenever you feel like, you know, oh, I need a break from my main thing, you could take a couple days and do something that the intention, it's built into it that it doesn't matter. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah,
I'm building into this animation the fact that it doesn't matter if like this dinosaur, because I can tell you about 15 things that I hate about this dinosaur right now. But I'm going to be done with it, close the file, and not look at it again until I animate it. And I'm going to do 50 more in the next 3 weeks.
Wow. There is something liberating about that.
All right.
Yeah, that
guys,
sounds really cool.
I was going to say, Mike, is there I want to give you the last word if there's anything that you wanted to mention, because I know you do have to get going, and I know we're getting close to our hour and a half mark. So I want to start wrapping things up, but I want to, if there's anything that we talked about that you wanted to address, or anything that we, you want to just, pin on to what we're talking about, I want to give you that final word.
Yeah, nothing other than you guys rock, man. Like I always love talking to you guys. I mean, I didn't, I gotta say, I always get a little bit anxious because of just being live and being on the show and stuff. But once we get talking, it's super comfortable, and you guys are always like very helpful and insightful and just generous with your experiences and your knowledge. And I always appreciate it for years now, but especially now I'm kind of at this weird pivot point in my life, and I knew this was the place to go. I'm walking away with a lot of great conversation, great advice, great insights to different things that I can do, no matter what direction I go, and I just really appreciate it. And that's what I want to make a point to say. I appreciate you guys.
Nice. I did want to throw on one
Space Cat love in the chat here from Keith.
Yes, yes. I wanted to throw in one thing that's just you actually made a Facebook post that like really I thought was really cool and apropos, and I think actually applies to this kind of path you're at. Like whatever you've heard from us and stuff, at the end of the day, like none of us should be like buying a house because everybody's buying a house, or like buying a new car because the neighbor bought a new car, or like doing these things where we're letting other people's expectations of where we should be define who we are. So like those core questions at the top, I know I kind of had, it was like skip those questions, jump, but it's like Cory's dead on. Like I do think those core questions are going to get you like your compass like set wherever it needs to be, and like you at a place where you're content with like what you're doing, so I really appreciate you being vulnerable and like open, and I'm excited to see where exactly all of that ends up. But I wanted to just end it with your words on Facebook because I thought those were really apropos.
Check out my post; it's public.
It's nice.
I believe that, and thank you for saying that too. And I posted it because it's something that I felt very strongly after kind of just, I don't know, talking to a handful of people in my life while I'm going through this. And there's sometimes you can really feel when someone isn't necessarily trying to help you, but they're trying to help you be the person they need you to be to make sense of their life.
Yeah.
And that kind of inspired that post. Is like, you got to follow your own compass, to a lot of people out there who are, still super invested in comics, and comics is life. I don't fault you or judge you in any way, but I would imagine a lot of people would hear what I'm saying and think, he's quitting, I got too hard, it's this, it's that. And it's so much more complicated than that for me, personally. But I was there once. I've been on this show before saying, suck it up and draw your comic, you stupid, whatever. So I've been there too. And it depends on where you're at in your life and what is right for you. And that's something that I've learned over the years. I turned a lot of people off with my, kind of brute force attitude about, just do it, shut up, you've got time. But I recognize that I got a couple screws loose, so I make time in weird ways that the average person is not going to do, and so that's not fair.
Yeah.
But yeah, you got to find your own compass for sure. That had something to do with NFTs too, but we don't have time to get into.
Oh, please! I'm leaving.
No NFTs. And I will say, like, I ended up in some weird edgelord conversation online yesterday where I'm like, am I like a debater online now? What is going on? Anyhow, all right, guys.
All right, so let's go around the room and we'll start wrapping things up. Cory, where can everyone find you?
You can find my stuff at corykerr.com, and you should go to corykerr.com and go buy that t-shirt if you want it. It's corykerr.com/online, or you can go there and click on the store. It comes in men's and women's. It's a really nice print.
Yeah.
So I did this as an experiment to learn screen printing, and I screen printed a few of them, and they look pretty good. So you should go check those out. Affordable and free shipping right now. So if you want to do free shipping, then I probably won't keep that forever, but for a little while.
Cool.
So
when you guys click that buy button, I want you to say every expletive you want to, because you have the freedom to do so.
All right, Josh, where can people find you?
Right now, I'm going to direct everybody to graphicmundi.org, or just like Barnes & Noble's website. You can also get this at, like, I think Bookist. Basically on my website under Jacob's Apartment, it'll give you some links to places you can pre-order. I also just, like, I know it's a big ask, but, like, our community is rad, and, like, with these books, with indie books, like, anybody who's put one of these out, even if the publisher has, like, good distribution, it is shocking how much legwork just somebody posting and saying, hey, my friend has a book coming out, or Josh from Artcasters has this book coming out, you guys should pre-order it. Like, that goes a million miles, and does a lot of work for me, and also encourages me to keep this madness going, because it is really hard to make these things. So I hope you guys will go out there and do that. And that's kind of my little promo there. And I'll also buy 2 stories. So, yeah.
All right. Okay, Mike.
I'm Mike. I'm on Instagram. I draw stuff from time to time. I got a couple of Instagram accounts now. I'm pretty sure you'll they're both linked, but yeah, I got stuff. I got a website too. If you want to commission me for something, you could do that. I guess I could promote that.
Is that the website we got? Sisyphean Complex?
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
Which is kind of a perfect description of my life and in the title. And Cory's got a T-shirt that you should get, and Josh has a book that you should get that he just talked about, and I'd like to encourage you to do that as well. So
yeah, definitely. I was going to say it's a ways down the road, but eventually, I already have one from Josh. But eventually, when I do collect Young and the Dead as a trade, I want to get all my favorite artist friends. I want to commission them to do pieces for pinups and things.
Yes.
So I still got another issue to write before we get to that point, but would love to see your take on it. So
Oh, dude,
I actually did a thumbnail composition for that, and Josh
Really?
told me it was too complicated.
okay.
We were collaborating on it, and I was like, "What about this?" And he's like, "Dude, we got to get this done in a couple of days."
Oh yeah. I was, I heard about the whole story and the turnaround and everything, and I still haven't framed it yet. We're going to be doing some redecorating, and I want to get a frame for it. It's just so awesome.
It was
All right.
fun to play with your
That's
characters. So like I'd encourage everybody to do that when he does reach out, because it's always fun to play with other people's characters. I also I feel bad because I was talking crap about pinup art like 2 days ago on a live stream, and I want to be really clear that like one of the things that I like about Mike's pinup art that I don't see in a lot is something like Scott was touching on, which is like I love well done pinup art. But like the thing I like about Mike's is like there's a layer to it. There's usually like an aha moment. There's something a little deeper. There's sometimes something a little creepy, but it's not like creepy like rapey creepy.
Yeah, no, you
Which
won't
is like
find that in any of mine.
yeah. So it's like that's the thing. Like I really actually appreciate, like Scott was saying. I just wanted to reiterate that too. Like because I feel like a lot of people just go with the obvious or the first solution with pinups, and it's such like an art form. And I like that Mike honors it. So I just wanted to throw that out there too. So
Thanks.
we're
man.
just gonna flatter.
I really appreciate that, honestly, because I get a lot of flack for doing it sometimes. So I really appreciate when people notice what I'm actually doing versus what they might perceive that I'm doing. I like that. Yeah.
Nuance is hard on the internet.
Yeah, and in person sometimes when people have their own biases.
Oh yeah.
He won't watch this, so I don't mind saying. But my brother-in-law, I'll end on this. My brother-in-law, every time he comes in my studio, he looks around and he kind of buttons his lip and just kind of sighs and always has some kind of comment about what kind of how can I say this, personal activity I may engage in on a regular basis in here. And I always tell him that says so much more about you than me. Like, how am I going to get work done doing that? I draw, like I have to use my hand to draw. Anyways, yeah, I appreciate that you see that it's not about that. It's about the art, and that's cool.
Speaking of you using your hand to draw, Frank wanted to know about the glove. So yeah, Frank, you can
Glove Brothers.
I don't know what you call them, but just search for them on Amazon or whatever. That's where I got mine. So,
or just get a regular pair of gloves and you can snip off beads. I've done that too.
Yeah.
More importantly, I swear this is the last thing. To follow up on another episode, this little for tennis elbow, I don't have to stretch anymore. I draw for hours all day and no pain, no nothing. Yeah, to follow up on the whole hand-arm pain thing, it's just a little thing for tennis elbow. Game changer. It's awesome.
Oh man, I like just almost want to throw this out there too if I can find it. Oh, never mind. I thought I had my brace here. I was going to show off a really cool brace. Never mind, guys. This. Oh wait. Ooh, boom.
Oh, here we go.
This. If you can get one of these are really great if you have like the thumb.
Oh
issues.
Yeah. It's
like a really flexible, and it mainly like takes care of that like ball of the thumb problem that we all get. So
mine will like twitch like uncontrollably sometimes. I hate that.
Yeah, cool. I had to get that cortisone shot in my.
All right, guys. All right. Well, you can find me at Serkland.com and like I said, as far as what I got to promote, just my, look at the YouTube merch shelf, which I think it's down here, or depending if you're on a phone, it's maybe there's one up to the side, but you can click on those and you can get any of my digital products that'll help you create comics. And I wanted to also thank everyone. Hold on a second. Let me go over to the chat here. I want to thank everyone in the chat. And thank Mike for coming on. It's always great talking to Mike. So sorry things didn't go well last week, but I'm glad we got you back on this week. And
I'm sorry too. I got hit with some kind of crazy bug last minute.
But it's all good. It all worked out in the end. So and the newsletter we still haven't switched that over. I just haven't had time. I've been crazy busy, but eventually the newsletter will be back. We'll be back to sending out reminders and everything, letting people know where you can find us. You can still join the newsletter, and basically what that does is eventually we will alert people, when a new episode's out, who the guest is going to be, what time we're going to go live, anything like that. So there's a link in the description. You can join that newsletter for Artcasters. We don't spam or anything like that. It's just there to notify people when a new episode comes out. Right now, we're not notifying people, but we'll get back to that. We just need to switch, not email servers, but what do you call it?
Substack?
Yeah, well, we're going to switch to Substack, I think. So anyway, yeah, you can still join, and then once we get back into the swing of things and start sending out emails, you'll be on the list. So we will see everyone next week, and we rotate. The other thing is that that newsletter will let you know whose channel we're going to be on, because the way we do this is we rotate from Josh's channel to Cory's channel to my channel and around again. So we on Josh's next?
Yeah. I'm still going to confirm the guests, but I think I have them lined up, so we should be good.
Okay, awesome. Well, we'll see everyone again. Thanks everyone in the chat. Thanks everyone watching after the fact, and we'll see you guys next week. Later.
See you.